part of the Fired Up Sports Network of shows. Please check out other Fired Up Sports Network podcasts like the P-Lot Pod, Water Cooler Talk, Bell Smashers, Philly Sports Love and Pain, Drunk on Broad, Beer Battered Sports, and the Fired Up Sports Show, which are available on all major podcasting hosting sites and social media. Also, check out Mark Ramos' Roundup on firedupsports.com, which breaks down the happenings going on with all your favorite local teams.
The Philadelphia Eagles are Super Bowl champions.
E-A-T-L-E-S Eagles!
Swinging a miss, struck him out. The Philadelphia Phillies are 2008 World Champions of Baseball.
Ladies and gentlemen, the Flyers are going to win the Stanley Cup. The Flyers win the Stanley Cup. For the lead. Yes! Iverson, wow, what a fake on Daniels as he broke his ankles and got all the way to the cup.
Good morning. Eric, I didn't know if we should play taps, if we should, whatever you would do to put the postmortem on this season that at some point in time had a lot of promise or a lot of highlights. I'm sure at some point in the off season, between the off season talk, we can go back and through and talk about some of the big plays, big moments. But man, I would argue with you that the second best series in this playoffs was the series that got played between the Phillies and Dodgers. And did give me a little bit of hope in terms of for future seasons, seeing the way that they were able to shut down the Dodgers offense, and the way that the Dodgers were able to play really well on offense in future series. Did make me feel a little bit like there's the window is not as closed as we might want to think it might be, but definitely there's definitely going to be a lot of moving parts, which we'll talk about in the second half of the season. But to go back to that Dodgers series, for it to end the way that it did in such heartbreak, it was just crushing. It was, I don't even know. It took a little while to kind of let that settle, to not only that it ended, but that it ended the way that it did.
It was the most Phillies way to end a playoff series. I mean, let's be real. I remember sitting on the couch, seeing him look toward home, and I just got up and started walking to the kitchen, maybe saying some things I shouldn't have been saying. And my wife and dog are looking at me like I'm a lunatic, but I'm like, why make that throw? And at this point, Kerkering, it's been talked about. You can blame Kerkering a little bit, but at the same time, should they have even been in that position? You look at it, the offense once again kind of comes up flat. But it's gotten easier, I think, every year. I remember after 2022, I was distraught for months about the way that season ended, just because I'm like, I felt. But every year, it's like, well, my expectations, I'm like, I think they're getting better every year. The on paper, the Phillies roster is way better now than it was in 2022. Yeah. But it's just, I was pretty much over it in 2 days, because it's like, well, it's just it's a fact of life. It's the Phillies and Sixers can't make it out of a playoff series.
Yeah.
But
it's and the fact that the performances that you got, especially from the starting pitching. I don't know that you could have asked more out of the guys that started the game, and then later on in the series, the guys that were starters that came out of the pen. It was just I think the phrase that you just used it kind of sums it up. They lost it in the most Phillies way possible, and it's nice to know, Eric, that I wasn't the only one that reacted in a way that was wildly uncontrollable and had everybody looking at me like I had 74 heads. But it did, I think, to have that, and then to kind of take people back on the timeline a little bit, to then flip over to the Eagles game that night, and that's the night that they're getting absolutely boat raced by the Giants. When you needed a little sports comfort, it was there to just kind of like kick you in the gut just a little bit more. The way that the starting pitch. Let's talk about the starting pitching in this series, because the starting pitching was everything that you could have possibly asked for.
Yeah, I mean, I feel like how long we've been saying this. I feel like for the last 2 years, every single show we do, we talk about how good the starting pitching is, and it just doesn't change. It's true. I mean, they shut down the Dodgers offense in a way that, look at the Brewers, the 1 seed, the biggest fraud of a 1 seed I've ever seen, get in there and just get absolutely demolished by them. And the Phillies, the biggest thing here, okay, but when you're talking from a pitching standpoint, the pitching in the Phillies series, and then you can even go back to the World Series with the Blue Jays, 2 of the I think best pitch series in years. Just who they were able to use. The thing that got the Phillies was the depth that the Dodgers had. They did not have to go the back end of their bullpen. Their actual relievers were atrocious most of the season, but they didn't have to use, because they have 7 starters who you could rely on, with bringing out Emmett Sheehan and bringing out Glasnow and all the different times.
I mean, it's for them to just flip the script with Roki Sasaki and being able to just bring him in and essentially make him the default closer. Like it really becomes really hard to argue, right? Ohtani in that series, has 1 hit, and then again, you look at the way that he was able to play against the Brewers, right? The way that he's able to get on base between the time that series ends with the Phillies and the time that they win the World Series, he was regular. Like, he was everything that you would suspect out of a guy who is essentially your modern day Babe Ruth. And their pitching staff was able to figure out a way to keep him under lock and key.
Yeah, they really did. And it was all the way through, except, the bullpen had a couple lapses again. And that's where the Phillies, I felt, the offense I think both pitching staff shut down the opposing offense. So the offense, I think, looking back, I'm angry at the offense, but I think the biggest factor in that series was the fact that the Phillies bullpen wasn't or I really even should say, this, who they could use out of the starting staff wasn't as deep as what the Dodgers had. And I just keep thinking, if Zach Wheeler was still in the rotation, that adds that one extra X factor that you can use there. Because and not even like the bullpen was horrible, but the Dodgers just being able to pull out those guys and basically make the offense look foolish, I think is really what kind of flipped that series, and that's what was the deciding factor.
Yeah, and then and we can kind of bounce around from game to game, but then you look at Game 5, or you look at Game 4, and the way that epically ends, and you look at what they would have had to face coming up in the top half of that next inning, in Blake Trinan, who is an absolute gas can, and they wanted no parts of him being on the field.
Yeah,
he's the guy coming into the game, and I can't be mad at Kirkering. He did exactly what you needed him to do, right? He got a ground ball out, and just in that moment of time, right, just doesn't make the play. And in games of this magnitude, those are the differences between winning and losing, right? And you look at how that and we'll talk about the World Series in a little bit, but there were plays like that in every game of the World Series. So you can see, even from round to round, how that intensity just magnifies and magnifies. But I think having Zach Wheeler, right, it pushes that one more asset into your bullpen, which is it seems like the Dodgers just had the unlimited supply, and their kind of strategy from the entire season, right, of never taxing guys, keeping guys rested, giving guys extra days of rest, really to prepare for this season. And when I say this season, the postseason, that's a strategy that I think you might see repeated in baseball, where you look at teams really kind of like manipulating the schedule to know that, like, yeah, we got to be in a position after 162, but the goal was really to be humming in October, to be ready in October.
Yeah, and I think like, and again, we talk about this too, but like you can never have too much starting pitching, and that just shows why, right?
No,
So it's never a bad problem to have, even if you got to figure
no,
out ways in the rotation, or sometimes you got to go to a 6-man, or you got to flip some things around. It can never be a bad thing, especially come October. And one thing I loved about most of the postseason was how a lot of these managers were just riding these starters. Like,
yeah,
in past postseasons, I feel like, okay, they get to like, 60, 70 pitches in the fourth inning and they give up a
yep,
hit and they're out. It's just going reliever, reliever, reliever. Here, I mean, there were guys giving up 3 and 4 runs and they're still shoving them 7 innings. Like it was
yeah,
cool to see, because I think starting pitching does make such a difference. And I get, the managers could tell by that time when a guy has his stuff and when he doesn't. So
yeah,
I think it was good. I that's like my style of baseball. Like I love watching starters go deep in a game,
for
and
sure.
managers riding their horses basically
Yeah,
to a win. So as much as I don't I don't like the Dodgers, and I've never liked the Dodgers, but you got to give them credit for the way that
yeah, most definitely.
that they were able to manage these games and had all the pieces that they needed. And we can bitch and moan all we want about salary and payments and everything, but they're technically not doing anything wrong. Do I like it? No, but it is what it is. So
No, but they've figured out a way to manipulate the system to be able to
mhm.
work with the financials that they have.
Yep.
But like, to lose the first 2 at home was crushing, especially the way that they lose game 1. But I would tell you that, like, in every game they had opportunities, and we kind of saw a little bit of those old behaviors that we saw throughout the season. You know, not moving guys over, getting guys in scoring position, and not pushing them through. You saw just those little glimpses of bad habits, and I think, and this is something we'll talk about on the second half, is like parts that they need to address for next season. Um, the comments from Dave Dombrowski post exit about Bryce Harper, and how, like, I would turn it around and look at him and go, you haven't given any protection for me at all. Like, all of what I'm creating for Kyle Schwarber, imagine if there was that type of player behind me, in it, essentially in the same way that they lost a lot in their lineup when they lost Reese Hoskins because of that right-handed power bat. And I really do think that that's, outside of the guys on their roster, that has to be, whether it's through trade or whether it's through free agency, has to be one of their biggest needs to address.
I agree. You mean known power hitter Alec Boehm isn't doing it for you? Yeah, and that's really the biggest thing. I think, but I really do think the biggest reason is that Nick Castellanos is not proliferated into what he should have been, right? When they made that signing, he was supposed to be that right-handed power bat to kind of give that
Yep.
protection, and he's not doing it. Boehm, I also think, because of his size, was supposed to develop some power, which is totally reasonable to think. I just don't know how it
Yeah.
has never happened. But again, I mean, yeah, people can talk about Bryce, the amount of pressure on a guy like Bryce Harper. We say it with every other sport too, right? Like the big name guy, the guy making the biggest paycheck is the one under
sure.
the biggest scrutiny. And he came up short, but so did almost everyone else in that
Yeah,
series.
yeah.
And,
I mean, the top half of their lineup really struggled. Absolutely.
yeah, and we're this is what, 3 years in a row now. It's been the same thing.
Yep.
So yeah, I think the biggest need is getting a right-handed power bat behind Harper, and doing that by almost any means possible, because he's not getting younger. Dombrowski does have a point in the fact that, he might not have those same years that he had back when he was in his late 20s and, earlier 30s. So it's going to be, he's not going to get better, right? Baseball players don't typically age and get better. It happens occasionally, but it's pretty rare. But one thing that would help him is just letting him see more pitches. And right now, when you got, Alec Boehm, who loves grounding and double plays, or, Nick Castellanos, who loves swinging first pitch, as a pitcher, it's like, all right, well, why would I pitch to Bryce when I got two guys here who are, either not necessarily always an easy out. Like Boehm, I don't think is always an easy out. He can put together a decent at bat, but what damage is he going to do if there's no one on base? So I think from a pitcher standpoint, it's easy.
I mean, I don't know if I'm going to, remember this stat accurately, but he saw one or two pitches in the zone in that entire Dodgers series.
Mhm.
And I don't blame the Dodgers at all, because you look at when the guys that are batting behind him are no threat at all. Like in no short order is, Nick Castellanos and Alec Boehm. When you've got lineups where Brandon Marsh is batting fifth, the fact that they've had the lack of power from any of the outfield positions at all, and then you kind of move that in, and the fact that you've got a third baseman who is not a power bat. So now you've got four positions right off the top that are not giving you the power supply that you need to allow Bryce Harper to see more pitches in the zone. Trey Turner was better and has been better at the plate in terms of like seeing pitches and getting on base and stealing. Like he had a much better season this year than he did the year before.
No, absolutely.
But like Stott didn't give you what you thought you were going to get. Now again, we're talking about a guy whose job is to get on base in the 9-hole, but like he had a lot of there are just, for a team that won as much as they did and was success and was the number 2 seed in, and had the, one of the best records in baseball, and you look at their lineup and it's almost a wonder to say, like, how did they do it, because of how many holes there are in this lineup. But I think this offseason, with the comments coming out with Preston Mattingly talking about their, the quote was they want to build a monster. If that's the case, great. I'm here for it. They're going to have to be really active and really creative to be able to do that with the assets that they have and the money that they've already got committed to certain guys.
Yeah, absolutely. And I really do think, they're close, right? They're very close. It's just like it's been missing like that one or two pieces every single year. And it's been, obviously, the offense to me is the reason why all this stuff is falling flat, because it's just been so inconsistent. Going back to Trey Turner real quick, he had his best season as a Philly so far from an offensive standpoint, obviously, and even a defensive standpoint. He looked much better playing the field. I really think him getting hurt and missing that last month of the season, just it's so hard to get back into a rhythm when you've been out that long. And he came back and had 2 at bats in the final game of the season. So it's like, and then back to 5 days off. So I really think that could have hurt the top of the lineup a little bit. But yeah, going back to what you were just saying, if they're going to build a monster, they need that right-handed power bat, and they need what now with picking up Alvarado's option and Alvarado going back to the player he was, I think is a step in the right direction. But they need one more power arm in that bullpen. I think you need a couple guys that are pumping 100, because every other good bullpen has it. But they're so close, and there's guys in the system who are getting closer. Like, do I think Justin Crawford's or not? Yeah. Do I think he's necessarily the answer? I don't think he's, like, especially his rookie year, like he's not going to be a difference maker, right? I'd like to see what they have in him, but he's not going to be a guy you're relying on.
No, but I would tell you that, like,
absolutely.
Yeah, I would tell you that for me, like, this is like you can't send him to AAA anymore. Like,
no, he's done.
You're at a point now where you need to see what you have, and he either plays well and stays, or plays well enough to be a legitimate trade asset to acquire someone else. But you're at the point now where you've and let's be honest, to play on a team like this and to insert him into a lineup like this, you're inserting him into the back half of your lineup. He's going to bat 7, 8, 9. And if he can do what he's done in the minor leagues, which is put the ball in play, get on base, be active on the base pass, and cover a lot of ground in the outfield, I would tell you that, yeah, that's a guy that they need. And if you can insert power into those other two spots in the outfield, then it's kind of like it's not an even swap, but like the cost benefit analysis outweighs what would be the negatives.
Yeah, absolutely. And eventually you have to start injecting some new life into the lineup, and it can't all be from outside because you can't pay. Like the way free agency is right now, the market is just insane. And you have to start developing players from within. And I think we're finally getting to that point where some of these guys will actually start making an impact, right? Like
Yeah.
Otto Kemp came in last year, had some good games, but apparently was playing with a broken kneecap for most of the season, which
Oh, Jesus.
that's crazy to me. So probably a reason why some of the production wasn't there. But, we're getting to the point where Crawford's going to be here. We're getting to the point where Painter's going to be here. I really thought Aiden Miller was more like a 2027 guy, but in hearing how they're talking, like there's a chance he could be making his debut later this season if he does what he did, at the end of his time in Double-A from August and then into September last year. So we're getting to the point, and getting those guys in there is huge because they're going to come at a very cheap price, which then allows you to go out and get that big money right-handed power bat that you need right now to put behind Bryce Harper.
For sure. So talk to me about where does your off-season approach start? Obviously the biggest name on here is Kyle Schwarber, right? And I don't think they're in a position where if they let him go, and I say that with so much hesitation, because depending on who you listen to, it's either absolutely not, or there's a couple teams that might sneak in and just write him a blank check. I think this has to be your number one priority. I think taking him out of the lineup, it will do a very good job at exposing so many more flaws.
I genuinely don't know if this team would hit 100 home runs next year if they don't have Kyle Schwarber in this lineup. Like Harper's power is down. Who else is going to hit the ball out of the park? Like you don't have another power hitter in the lineup right now. So I genuinely do not see a way that this lineup can function. And even like if they lose Schwarber, they have to put someone else who's going to hit 40 home runs a year because there's no other way to win baseball. Like I know, hitting the home run is not the end all be all, but in today's game, it is a huge factor in how a season goes.
It's a big
I know
chunk
not
of the
everyone
pie.
likes to hear that, but like you think about it, I think like Harper was second on the team with like 20-something home runs. I think like Max Kepler might have been like third on the team last year in home runs. And he ended up being a platoon guy by the end of the season. I could be wrong about that, but at one point that was the case.
I'm going to look it up while you're talking.
But it's just like if they lose him without replacing him with another power bat, like I genuinely do not see this team. There's a chance they don't make the playoffs. Like you need someone to hit home runs, and they just don't have any protection to do it. So I think Schwarber is priority number one. Now the biggest thing that I'm seeing is like the years are the kind of the bigger issue for me right now because there's predictions all over the place. Like there's people saying anywhere between 3 and 5. I'm like, I'm okay with 4. I think that's a bit of a reach, but I'll take the 4 just because you need them for those next 3. 5's a lot. 5's a lot for an aging.
He's looking at the years, right? I think the teams are looking at the AAV.
Yep.
I think you're gonna have to eat at least one bad year on the back of this contract.
Yep.
Like
It's kind of the way contracts are going.
Yeah, I mean, the one that I'm looking at right now is like when they're talking about like potential offseason 5 at 150. Like that's a huge number and a huge commitment. Now, Castellanos is coming off the books after next season. Taiwan Walker's
Hopefully
coming
this
off the
year.
books after next season, right? Like, you know, the thing that I think about with him is like he means too much to this lineup, to this locker room, to the community. I think you not that you can ask him to, essentially take a hometown discount, but I think having him understand, and I think I don't think you need to make him understand, but like I think as a team you need to realize that that's a guy that you can't let walk out the door, because you would need multiple guys to replace him, not just the one guy with the power bat, but like what he does and what we've heard about the stories with the way that he contributes to the young guys that come into the locker room. It's a guy that essentially, like, you would describe him maybe as like a glue guy. He's the guy that kind of keeps everything working, everything together. In terms of like alternatives, I know that this is not like this is a really sore subject, but like if that money then becomes available, and just to go back, after Schwarber, Harper with 27, Kepler with 18.
He was third.
And then Castellanos was 17.
Again, I mean, so I was kind of, I thought I was exaggerating with hitting 100 home runs without Schwarber. They might actually not do it. Like,
No,
unless they bring someone else in. That's kind of, wow, that's crazy.
So to get to 100, you like, I'm just trying to do the math real quick, and it's early on a Saturday, but you would have to combine to get to Kyle Schwarber's 56. You would have to combine the next three guys, but to get to 100, you would have to combine numbers 2 through 6, 2 through 7 to be able to get to 100, which is like, ooh.
Yeah,
the drop off is significant, right? You're going from Harper at 2 at 27, and then Kepler at 18, Casti at 17, Turner at 15, Stott at 13, Real Muto at 12, Edmundo Sosa at number 8.
Yeah. And the thing is, like, none of these guys are going to develop into better power hitters. You know what I mean? So it's like everyone's going to be dropping off or staying about the same.
Right.
And it's not like you don't need 4 guys on your team hitting 30 home runs, but you need to. There needs to be a balance there, just because of the way the game is. I mean, look at the postseason;
Correct.
They didn't really hit any home runs, and then you go back and then watch the Dodgers Blue Jays series, and how much home runs mattered in that series. It's like,
for sure.
I know that it's not the style of baseball that everyone likes, but unfortunately or fortunately, depending on what style you do like, it is the nature of the beast at this point, and you got to have guys who do it. I know the swing and misses are frustrating. The bad approaches are frustrating. I thought it was better this year, but at the same time, we're out.
For
so
sure.
It doesn't matter.
Let's talk about some guys that aren't on the roster.
Yeah.
All right. So at the DH, right, the obvious name, the obvious right-handed power bat is Alonso. Another Boris guy, right? Another guy who, right, you might, if you wanted to bring him in, I think there's a unique opportunity there to maybe get he and Harper off their feet, if that's the case, in terms of like, and I think as crazy as it sounds, the way that Harper was able to just step into that first base role and not only do it, but do it at a really elite level was remarkable.
Gold Glove finalist.
Correct, right? Like, I think if you said we have an opportunity to bring Alonso in, Alonso's going to play first, you're going to have to go back to right field. That solves a couple of your offseason issues in terms of, 1, putting a power bat back in the outfield, 2, putting a right-handed power bat behind Harper, and I say that with the contingency that you're also bringing back Kyle Schwarber, because if you let Schwarber walk and then you're not replacing him with another power bat in addition to the guy that you already need to add, that scenario I think is one that you can talk through and identify that, like, yes, this makes that one move solves a couple of problems and makes the team significantly better.
Yeah, it's funny. Like he's the exact type of bat we actually need, except a little more swing and miss. But Pete Alonso, like I have had a disdain for that man for so long. But if it would help the team. There's actually another guy out there who I would prefer from the right hand side. It
All
would
right, talk to
involve
me.
moving Alec Boehm and bringing in
Okay.
Alex Bregman. So he
Okay.
thrived last year in Boston. I know because that the short porch out there at the Green
For
Monster.
sure.
Citizens Bank Park is not a super deep ballpark either, so he could
No.
potentially thrive hitting driving balls out of left field there too.
Yeah.
And just like kind of seeing he's he's a solid defender. He has
For
that
sure.
pop. I don't know. I don't know from a contract standpoint who would be the better fit, but from a positional standpoint, if Bryce is staying at first, I like the idea of trying to move Bohm for something and bringing in Bregman.
I think there are teams around the league, and now again, you shot Bohm all last offseason and got nothing, like not even a sniff from the reports that we heard. If there's a way to swing Bohm to a team that, essentially you swap, back end of the bullpen relief, I think the more arms that you can put in front of Duran, the deeper you make this bullpen, the better off you're going to be when you get to the postseason, and you're able to take all the guys that are starters that are going to kind of push to the bullpen and make that part of your team deeper. I think if that's the case, that's another guy that guy was the next guy on my list. So we're kind of thinking on the same page here, because it's like if you it takes, again, it's a couple of different moves. It's going to take some roster manipulation, because Bum's a guy that's under contract. You're gonna end up having to try to find a trade partner and something that and try to get like usable assets back in return. There are some other interesting guys in terms of power bats, but it would make this team very left-handed heavy, right? The two obvious names are Cody Bellinger and Kyle Tucker. They would solve a problem in terms of putting power back into your outfield. That's for sure.
Certainly would. And yeah, at a certain point, I guess, you just got to put the best players in your lineup, right? I mean, I know handedness matters, but if you look at splits, like for Harper and Schwarber, righty lefty splits don't matter a ton. In fact, I don't know if it was last year. It might have been 2024. But there's one year recently where Schwarber actually had better splits against lefties than he did against righties, which is kind of crazy. So it's like, I mean, yes, a right-handed power bat I think is absolute need number one. But if that fails, I think you just have to put the best player there. If you can move on from, if they can try to move on from Castellanos and dump some of that salary over this offseason, that would be huge in trying to get someone else. I don't know how likely this would be to happen, just because, like we talked about, starting pitching depth, and he actually had a decent year. Taijuan Walker might have done enough last year, and he's on a 1-year deal now, to maybe move him and clear some salary, because teams who need starters saw, hey, he's not great, but he's also like better than some of the people we have, the way starting pitching is.
You might be able to have some conversations with some teams that are going to not be in contention at the start of the season. That might be in a need for a guy, on an expiring contract, a guy who's going to eat innings, and with the prospect of maybe potentially adding a guy like Painter to this rotation. You're going to lose. The likelihood is that Ranger Suarez, the likelihood that you're going to be able to bring him back is going to be a very unique set of circumstances.
Right. But Good. I was going to say behind Painter, now after last year's draft, I feel way better about pitching depth in the minor leagues with Gage Wood potentially being like a guy who is going to be closer because he was in college, and a couple of those other guys they drafted.
Okay.
So it's like if you lose Ranger, which Ranger is one of my favorite Phillies, and he has been for like a long time. Love the guy.
For sure.
I just don't foresee him coming back, just given the circumstances that they're in. So you got to figure, okay, so Painter kind of places him maybe to start the season, hopefully. And then if you need that depth, obviously those guys are not the draft guys from last year are not going to be ready probably to start on the opening day roster. But, that's the thing about drafting college arms. And I was actually listening to another podcast the other day, and they had Preston Mattingly on, and he was talking about getting these guys to develop actually in the major leagues kind of to an extent, right? Because they're already kind of ready, and that's something I feel like the Phillies have not done. And we're seeing it with Crawford,
Very
right?
much so.
Just letting guys kind of fester in the minors for too long. Where you look at Trey Savage for Toronto, right? He came up this year and was a huge part of an AL pennant winning team. So it's there's some guys there who I think could provide some depth from a pitching standpoint later on down the road in the season.
Yeah, I think kind of Eric in the same way that they used Kirkring a couple years ago. All right, guys that I'm ready to move on from. I don't need to see any more Brandon Marsh. Brandon Marsh has kind of shown me what he is, unless he is a better version of what I was about to say Carl Crawford. Of what Crawford can be. I think Crawford kind of fills in and replaces that role. So that's a guy that can you package he and Walker or he and Bohm to say a team like Oakland, right, that might need legitimate day one starters, guys that you can kind of just plug into your lineup and get something back in return, and it opens up a spot. What about talk to me about Stott? Is Stott a guy, because defensively, I think it would be really hard to argue that you would be able to find an equivalent replacement for but his approach at the plate has to change for the slot that you're asking him to play in that lineup.
Yeah, and he's a tough one because he's a guy every year I feel like, okay, this is going to be his year. This is going to be his year. But he's kind of dropped off every season since. But from a defensive standpoint, he's so good. And he used to be really good at working counts, and he still can occasionally. To me, second base is not a huge offensive position that you need all of your production out of. My bigger thing is you need more power production out of your third base and your right field.
Most definitely.
And your left field. So it's those to me are the bigger issues. I think we're kind of seeing what Stott is. If we could just get a little bit more offensive production out of him, because when he's on, he steals bases. Just get on base a little bit more, because his defense and his base running, I think, are really key components to his game. If he could just get on base, even if he's hitting, 250, 260 instead of the 230s, 240s, I think that makes a big difference with his game. And I don't know if that's that much to ask. I think a guy with his makeup and his ability to, foul pitches off and work a count, I don't think that's too much to ask. So I don't know if I'm ready to move on from him just yet. I'd give him another season. I'm more ready, if we're talking infielders, to move on from Bohm.
Yeah. I don't know what the contract looks like, but I think at this stage of where you are in terms of trying to be right back in the mix next October, with what you have invested in your pitching staff, I think bringing back Real Muto is essential. To think that you're going to get an equivalent replacement out of the guys that you have had, and I don't the other reason why this move feels really important to me is to see what the alternatives out there. Yeah. There aren't a ton of great options out there.
Yeah, I agree. And it's one of those things where you're we agree that there's got to be changes in this lineup. It's just where, right? Because there's no real solution to catcher. And JT did not have a bad year last year.
No.
He's still a good defensive catcher. He knows how to call a game. He works well with his pitching staff. And from an offensive standpoint, yeah, he's falling off a little bit, but at the same time, like he's still a productive like 7 or 8 hole hitter. So I think the biggest thing here is years because he
Okay.
is probably what is he? I think he's 33 or 34.
Sounds about right.
And the fact that he's caught like more than 1,000 innings, I might be exaggerating, but like a significant number of innings more than the next guy over the last like 5 years scares me a little bit just because
Okay.
I don't know how someone's knees can hold on to that. So I really don't want to go more than like 2 years with him. And I still think 2 years like might be long, but like I really get nervous if he's asking for that third year just because, you know, what's a 36-year-old catcher who's caught that many innings. It just doesn't bode well in my mind. But you're right.
Yeah.
What's the other options?
Yeah, I mean, they're not great. I don't even have to list them. I can just tell you, if you want to go look, fine, but they're not.
Yeah.
They're not real good options, and you're not going to get the way that he is able to handle the pitching staff, the way that he is able to manipulate counts, the way that he is able to get like throw guys out, and he just contributes to so many aspects of their performance on the field that I look at that and go, all right, that's a guy that like I can't let walk. I have to. And again, we might be looking at the 2029 Phillies, and there could be a lot of aging contracts, and we might have to be down there buying some extra hot dogs because it's going to be you might be kind of hanging out a little while and not watching great baseball. But I look at I think the writing on the wall is for Ranger Suarez. I think the only way that he comes back is if they don't get the contract that they feel like is commensurate with what they have put in place, and he comes back on like a 1-year deal and kind of goes back out and does it again. I think the most likely scenario is that he's going to get a 5 or 6 year deal from a team. My guess is probably out west. If I had to guess, but the Padres is a team that's come up. I think Boris is going to put him in a really good position to be able to just kind of like maximize this opportunity.
Yeah, I agree with all of that. I don't foresee a situation where they settle because just the way starting pitching is right now. And if this World Series has taught, or if this postseason and every postseason really should be teaching every other GM, it's that starting pitching is probably the most important thing when it comes to winning a championship.
For sure.
And Ranger Suarez can be used in a couple different ways in a postseason series that we've seen before. So he's a solid starter. He can pitch out of the pen. The guy does not ever get rattled, or at least he never shows it anyway. So there's so many things that there's to like about him, and I can't see there being any less than like 12 teams that are trying to get his services because of I think how valuable he is.
Yeah. You have any interest in bringing back Harrison Bader?
Yeah, I like Bader. Now I think his offensive production that we saw at the end of the season was an anomaly. Like you look at his career numbers, he's not as good as he was putting on in August and September for us. But I like his I like his edge. I love his center field.
Yep.
And on the right deal, I mean, it was a mutual option for 10 mil. I mean, his career numbers are not good enough to warrant a much larger number than that. But if we get him for 3 million, I'm sorry, 3 years, 12, 15, somewhere in that range, I would be all on board with that because you need a center fielder.
Yeah, and I think
Crawford projects more as a left fielder.
Yeah, and I think he gave you enough of a sample size to say like, yeah, I can cover gap to gap. I can get to any ball that's that's going to get hit. He can give you the sporadic power numbers as a right-handed hitter in your lineup. I think he gave you everything that we had hoped we were getting from Rojas, and just never did.
Yeah.
All right, I'm going to give you a couple trades because these are things that I just saw this morning. So like Casty and $15 million to the Marlins for I'm going to butcher this guy's name. Lake I don't even know. Backer? I don't know.
I think I did see that.
B-
Honestly, if there was a team that was willing to take Castellanos and pay $15 million of his contract, I would be packing his bags. I don't care what they get. Like getting a reliever is obviously huge.
So like
the Phillies are paying.
The Phillies
are paying
take Casty and
All
pay
right,
the
so
$15 million. Just to essentially just
I
to
want a
like
player back.
free up the roster spot. So I'm going to get a player back.
Yeah, and it's a reliever. We need that. So yeah, I do it. I need him off this. I need him off this roster. I can't watch another year of him.
Yeah,
I can't do it.
Bohm and Carson DeMartini to the Angels for Taylor Ward, which is one that like.
Yeah. Taylor Ward. I just want to know what is his. I think is this the last year on his contract? I think it might be. I like Taylor Ward as that right-handed power bat behind Bryce. Again, he's not going to hit for a high average, but the guy he's going to hit close. He could easily hit close to 30 home runs, which is exactly what you need. And I guess you have to then plan what you're thinking for third base, which means I think Aiden Miller may be a potential suitor more quickly. I probably do it.
Right in that scenario, right? He'll be a free agent in the summer of 20 or in the fall of 27. So got him for next year. The other guy, Joe Adell, is another guy that is an option in LA too.
Mm-hmm. Joe Adell, I think, has more controllable years. So you probably have to pay higher, but I would also take him. He showed some power last year.
I'd be in on it too. And there's another one. So in this scenario, they go a different route at catcher. And they don't big bag Real Muto, but they trade with the Royals, and they send Marsh, they send Gene Cabrera, they send Griffin Bulkholder, and get back Carter Jensen and Chris Bubik. So
it's interesting. Different. You get younger at catcher, you add the pitcher. So Gene Cabrera, I'd be okay moving on from. Griffin Burkholder is intriguing, though. He's got some real pop down there. But I guess if you're filling in outfield spots from the outside, it's interesting. That's probably the one I'm like most hesitant about.
Okay.
But I just for the sake of shaking up the lineup, like you have to do something, and I think I think I would still be okay with it. I don't want to get rid of any of like the top like 3 or 4 prospects. But Burkholder, and he's been hurt a lot. Yeah, maybe I do it. I don't know. That's that one. I would need to think about a little bit more.
Listen, and I think this is the time to think about that stuff, right? Because these are the conversations that are happening to say like, all right, what are our options? Because you are with a lot of these big name contracts, you are kind of landlocked into not having a lot of flexibility at a lot of positions. Any interest in a guy like Adley Rutschman?
So it's funny when we were talking about JT, he was kind of the guy who I'm like, I know people have been talking about him. Yeah. From an age perspective, yes. The Orioles, though, I feel like they commit organizational malpractice on a daily basis. Sure. How they let this guy get to the point where he is. I mean, there's got to be more potential on tap there because he was so good when he first comes up, and you're not like fluky good like your rookie season in Major League Baseball. Like you have to be decent to be able to do that. Right. So, but I really think that if there's a team who wants to trade for him, the Orioles are going to hold out for a huge trade package in return. And I I kind of don't want to give them the satisfaction.
Yeah,
I'd
yeah,
rather
I
just
know.
re-sign JT.
And there are, like, I was listening to the Philly show with Todd Selecki and Jim Salisbury and those guys and Ruben Amaro, and there was a couple of guys that they, the names that had been thrown around, very usual suspects for guys that we heard around the trade deadline, right? Like Stephen Kwan, but we
Mhm.
heard that the word on that is that Aiden Miller was the starting point for that trade, which is kind of like a no. It's a hard pass at that point. Taking guys on flyers like Luis Robert, right? I feel like that 3 years ago, sure. That now, there are other guys that interest me more than that right now.
Mhm.
Any other guys? Any trade targets, free agents, guys that we didn't talk about?
Those are the biggest guys. I was looking at the list of players who received qualifying offers from their team the other day, and
Okay.
there's a couple interesting ones on there, but you lose the draft picks for it, and some of them from like I had it up a minute ago. There were some that were intriguing, but some that were like a little bit scary too.
Okay.
Like Dylan Cease, but he's the guy who he had a pretty bad year last year. Brandon Woodruff's interesting, actually. You lose the draft pick for him, but or the second, fifth, but coming off that injury, he looked pretty good. I'm wondering if he'd come a little bit cheaper because of the fact that he was coming off those two injuries. The real surprising one, who I did not see this really coming from, was Imanaga with Chicago. I was kind of
Oh, okay.
surprised that he was, because it was I think it was a mutual option that both sides declined, which was kind of interesting to see. So there's some interesting names there. Again, I don't think we need, like, if we're going to go out and if the Phillies are going to go out and get a big name free agent, I want it to be a right-handed power bat, and none of those guys really fit that build. So I think, and I know like Bregman is a risk, and he's going to come for a lot of money. But I think for what we need, and like the fact that I think Bohm's time is kind of running out, I think that's probably the move that I want to see the most.
Okay.
But it's funny, like last year when he was a free agent, I'm like, I'm not ready for Bregman. But he had a great year with Boston this year. So
He really did. I know that, like, to kind of stick on third base for a hot minute, right? There's the kid out of Japan, but he's a left-handed bat.
So real quick, I saw a stat about him the other day that kind of scared me a little bit. He had this was was it him or maybe it was a different guy? No, it was the Japanese league. I think I saw that on pitches over 93 miles an hour, he had like an 0.95 batting average.
Oh God.
And let's just say major league pitching, most guys are throwing over 95 miles an hour.
Yeah.
But again, maybe those guys who could work with him. I don't know. I mean, he obviously has some potential, but
for sure,
there's some pause for me after seeing that.
Yeah, I'm at a point now where, like, you've gotten me so hard up for the the right-handed power bat that, like, anybody that I see they're like that bats left-handed, I'm like, man.
Yeah.
Unless it's like unless
Tucker.
it's like a guy like Kyle Tucker who is the skill level outweighs what side of the plate he's on. I think getting anybody to protect Harbor has got to be your number one priority, because it's just it's on a completely different level to kind of see what he can do when he's protected in the way that he protects Schwarber.
Right.
So, World Series, because we didn't touch on that. That might have been, Eric. That might have been the best series of professional sports that I watched ever.
It was pure entertainment. It was so good. And it wasn't the outcome I wanted, but I couldn't even be mad because, I'm like, it literally had everything. I mean, it had awesome defensive plays, it had big time home runs, it had great starting pitching. Like, everything you can add, a bench clearing brawl even at one point. So like
Yeah.
there's literally everything that you could want in baseball was in that series. And I really don't think, obviously I wish the Phillies were in it, but like I don't would it have been a good a series just watching, guys, strike out, your top three hitters strike out 8 times with one weak ground ball to third base. I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, you saw in some of those, like, to have the Blue Jays play as well as they did at home in game one, and then they lose game two, and then LA comes back and wins games three, and that's like you have the 18 inning game mixed in there,
Yeah.
where you get the guy, I can't remember the guy's name, the relief pitcher that didn't throw more than like 35 pitches all season and comes in and pitches 4 shutout innings. Like,
I forget who that was too.
I mean, it really did have everything. The craziest thing, Eric, was like I fell asleep on the couch on that one, and
Are you talking about the 18 inning game?
18 inning game.
Yeah, I
And
eventually
then
called it quits.
I hit record, went to bed, and I'm like, I'll watch it tomorrow morning when I'm exercising. And I go on, and the first thing that pops up when I turn on the TV is like the YouTube highlights.
Yeah.
And I'm like, I'm trying to search for it. And I'm like, I can't. I'm like, this is so weird. I'm like, they're always there the next morning.
Mm-hmm.
Not realizing that when I looked into it, the game had only ended like 2 hours before I got up. That like,
Yep.
and then to see the way that game ended, and to see the back and forth, and then in game 7, to see, you're right, like Yamamoto, it like pitches the way that he does in game 6, and then comes back and throws 4 innings in game 7. And then to see, like, to get Rojas up, and of course it's a former Philly and Jeff Hoffman, who I like. You're 2 outs away from winning the World Series for the first time since they beat the Phillies in '93.
Yep.
And you give up the home run to Rojas, and that's his first home run against right-handed hitting or right-handed pitching all season long.
Yep.
And comes up and just got a hold of one. And kudos to the Dodgers in game 7, because they were never really out of it. They were all like, even when the score was going back and forth, they're never really out of the game. And then they kind of fight and claw, and they get one here, they get one there, and then like they kept themselves within arm's reach, and the Blue Jays had opportunities to extend that lead in that game so many times, and just never did. And then the play that Rojas makes at second to get the force play at home,
when he almost lost the ball,
to see how close that play was. And when you talk about a game of inches, like literally the like if who was it? Was it Connor Falefo?
I think it might have been. Yeah, he was pinch running, wasn't he?
If he takes one extra step on the lead, if he starts one step further, that's it.
Yeah.
He scores. He beats the throw. Game's over. They win. It just, from a pure, like, when I like this series was fantastic, and then game 7 was incredible on top of that.
Yeah, no, it was actually probably the most exciting way to end a baseball season if the Phillies are not in it. Like, I mean, I watch pretty much every series anyway, but that was must see TV.
It really was. It's I don't know. It was just incredible. Incredible to to watch purely from like a non-biased, baseball perspective. Trey Savage is a guy that, like, local guy, from
Pac-10.
that you have. I think that is a good message to the rest of Major League Baseball that, these guys don't really necessarily need to have this wide breadth of minor league experience to be able to feel like they can come up and contribute.
Yeah, I mean, if they have the stuff, it just shows like they can be there, right? I mean, there's a few exceptions. Like obviously, like Paul Skeens was ready pretty much the day he got drafted, but like he's
Very much so.
obviously the exception. But you see it's starting to happen every now and then where guys will start coming through a little bit quicker. Who's the guy from the Angels, the first baseman? Nathan.
Oh, he played like almost right away.
And he played pretty much right away too. I forget it's a weird pronunciation. It's like Shanwell or something like that. Anyway, he came up pretty early. So I wonder if that's going to be like more of a thing, especially some of these college guys coming out who can just shove. Like, I mean, let them see what they have against the best. And especially like imagine now, like you're Trey Savage, you had you get drafted, then you're pitching in the major leagues, and imagine like the confidence he has now pitching in a World Series against the best team in baseball and just showing you can do it with the best. Like that's probably better for his development than doing anything in the minor leagues.
Really is. All right, Eric, on the way out, you got anything that you think might be shocking this offseason? All right, let's save that for next time. But any hesitancy about the conversations with the potential work stoppage?
I it actually gives me like anxiety thinking about it. It doesn't I don't think it bodes well. Like we saw how the last one was, and there was nowhere near as much, I feel like, on the table here.
Yeah.
And I am fully going to put this blame on not just small market teams, but owners who do not want to spend. If you don't want to compete, sell your freaking baseball team. What are you doing? Like, do not force a salary cap just because you're being a cheap ass. Like it bothers me, but the players union, I think, really shouldn't settle for that. I mean, I know baseball salaries are exorbitant, but like the game is not dying. We've seen how viewership is up. It was up in the regular season. It was up in the World Series. Like baseball is a growing sport. And and as much as I didn't necessarily like it at the time, like I think the pitch clock and some of these extra rules did have a big impact on that. People now are not expected to sit there for a 3.5, 4 hour game. Instead, it's more, 2:45 to 3:15. Like it's baseball's like at a really good point right now. And what I really don't want to see is cheap owners creating a work stoppage because they don't want to spend more than $100 million on their payroll. Like it's embarrassing if it gets to that point because it's going to kill the game. It's going to kill the game for a couple of years.
Yeah, listen. You said it all. I don't need to say anything.
I think
I feel the same way. Like this comes down to really thinking about this game is in a really good place right now.
Mm-hmm.
People are excited about it. You've got kids that are back into it, kids that are excited about it. That next generation of fans is excited about it. A work stoppage right now kills all of that momentum. And we saw, you and I kind of lived through, we've lived through how those strikes in years past have affected the game.
Mm-hmm.
And then you're essentially playing catch up for the next however many years until the next conversation comes up about this. Like, this is where you need to like realize that you got to lock yourselves in a room and you got to figure it out, and you got to figure out something that both parties are happy with, that keeps the fans in mind, because without them, none of all of this other stuff is possible.
Yeah, so, exactly.
On the way out, go Phils.
Go Phils.
Hey, listen to this guy. Tell me how you're feeling here. You're screaming.
I am stoked, baby.
You're screaming like it's still the game going on.
We're talking about the fightings here. The fightings. Said.
Said, Mike.